So good morning again. What we're here to talk to you about today, and this is my wonderful husband, Reverend Michael Spear. Most of you know him, I imagine. Yay. I know I say that. I do that for him every now and then when he walks in the room. He feels really good about it.
Appropriately so.
We have had a really lovely experience last week, and we thought we'd really like to share it with all of you because it's very relevant to all of you. The reason you're sitting here in this center, whether for the first time or for the 100th time or online, the reason you're here is we have in common that we all embrace unity, the idea of unity at some level. Michael and I had the good fortune of going to Unity Village last week, and the organization that we were a part of, that we were participating with at a conference, was the International New Thought Alliance, INTA. And they had their annual conference, which has not always been at Unity Village. They've had it all over. They had it in Chicago, had it, in the desert and Phoenix, all over the place. But we were very fortunate that they chose to be there this year, and in fact, they will also be there next year. So being there with this organization was pretty remarkable. A small group of people, but we had a lot of the leaders of New Thought. So what we thought we would do in, oh my God, this tiny little amount of time, is try to take you with us on some of what we gained from being there and to help you know why it's relevant to you and what we can do with it going forward. So does that sound like a good intention? Great, okay. And we have so many notes, so if things are falling all over everything, it's really gonna be okay.
Yeah, there might be papers flying off, so just if you find something that's yours. So you're seeing up here just a nice peaceful start, the path at Unity. This is, how many people here have been at Unity Village? Okay, so. Bucket
list, guys.
Yeah, absolutely, I encourage you to go. I mean, and this is just one of my favorite parts. The path, the grounds are huge. I think there's something like 60 acres, more than that. And there is a whole forest on part of the grounds and an actual walking path that you can go through, but it's going through the forest. Part of it is a little bit paved with stones. There's some workout stations. It goes on for a long ways, and then you can cut off of that and go through. So it's one of my favorite parts, and this was, Mary Beth and I were out walking on this. And it's very meditative, it's very beautiful, it's peaceful, it's quiet. Can we go to the next slide?
Just as an FYI, Unity Village itself was founded in 1919, meaning that this year it's 125 years old. So got a lot of lore there. In fact, Unity itself was founded in 1889.
It is, when you're there, you get a sense. And I put this in perspective because we're going to be talking about this today, of the teachings of unity, the principles of unity. At the Fillmores, when they founded this, when they purchased this land, and it was just raw land out there, it was a farm basically, and they cultivated it, they built these buildings. You can see some of them now, the beautiful tower, the rose gardens, the fountains. It is absolutely magnificent. And you talk about a demonstration of prosperity and abundance, and that the whole heart behind it, the whole intention was to grow unity. And it started out, they didn't want to have churches. They wanted to teach these principles, the principles we're going to be talking about today. And they started silent unity. That was the core. The core of their teaching was prayer. Silent unity was founded how long ago, Mary Beth? Do you know about?
I think right around the same time. It's
It's
been well over 100 years that they have been 24/7 praying in silent unity.
So basically, silent unity has been going nonstop, 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can call up and put prayer requests in, talk to people in some cases, but they have people up praying nonstop, and we've actually done it. We've gone up and sat and prayed for people in that chapel that they have nonstop for all that time. So that's what this is all about. Could we go to the next slide?
So before we talk about the labyrinth, how many of you have walked the labyrinth? It's pretty spectacular, isn't it? It's a wonderful experience. Before we talk about that, the theme of the event that we were at was New Thought in New Ways. And so what we're talking about today is not just about this whole idea about new thought. We're going to describe to you and explain to you a little bit about what new thought is, but we're also going to be talking about why that's relevant right now. So when we walked when you walk the labyrinth, that labyrinth is very mystical, and we walked it at night with the moon shining, and we did it all silently. We all left the venue we were in, and everybody walked out of there and walked across the campus over to the labyrinth, and then we all got surrounded, and one by one you enter the labyrinth. What they told us about the labyrinth is when you first walk up to enter the first stage of it, there's a stone right at the entrance to the labyrinth. And it's actually called a pausing stone. The reason it's called a pausing stone is apparently once upon a time, I don't know where, children were given stones when there was a labyrinth. They were given stones, and they were told to place the stones wherever they felt compelled to do so on the labyrinth itself, whatever labyrinth it was. And one little child put it at the front, right smack dab at the entrance to the labyrinth. And they asked her why she had done it. And she said, well, that's so people will pause and think before they walk into the labyrinth. And I hadn't known that, so I thought that was pretty cool. The other thing about this labyrinth that's wonderful that they don't all have are seats in the middle. They have stone seats around the interior when you get to the very center of the labyrinth, so you can really extend the amount of time you want to sit and meditate. The other thing about this labyrinth is it's the largest stone labyrinth in America, and all those thousands of stones were hand cut. It's pretty fabulous.
By the people who do labyrinth workshops here. And if you were here for that,
Right.
They probably told you about.
Yeah.
They did this project, and it was a big project, major. It's a huge. Next slide, please.
Okay.
So you get to pick
Well.
which one of those is real.
Now, this is a real ta-da, I have to tell you. This is something fabulous. We can't wait to share this with you and for you all to have the experience of this, because what's happening at Unity Village is a lot of the buildings that they had established that had purposes way back when they did a lot of printing and distribution of their materials before the advent of virtual and digital. They had so much room that they needed to be doing, be putting things in, and they have just catacombs of room. Well, what's happening in Unity Village has now become, for the first time, the retention space for the Centers for Spiritual Living, Religious Science. All of our archives are there. It took 2 semi-trucks to move those archives out to Missouri. The other thing that's pretty exciting is Divine Science, which is yet another denomination of New Thought, will be getting their archives there by the end of the year. The INTA archives are going to be there. Basically what's happening, which is pretty fabulous, and as you can see on your history map that we've given to you all of those documents, those hundreds and hundreds and thousands of documents, pretty much I think millions of documents for all the different flavors of New Thought, are now being housed right there at the vortex. I'm calling it the vortex of New Thought, which is Unity Village, right here in the Midwest. It's pretty exciting.
On top of Unity's own archives, which of course were there already. I mean, we're talking, we went into the Science of Mind archives, which is where this picture was taken. This is actually the pulpit that was used by Ernest Holmes, so you can see his ghost standing there between us. And I love the man because he makes me look tall.
Yeah, that's actually Ernest Holmes, who was the founder of Religious Science, and we're standing with him at that pulpit, and then right next to him are his actual suitcases for times when he would travel. But behind there's just room after room after room of archives. And the cool part about it, guys, is when we go, you can go into the Unity archives, you can go into the Religious Science archives, and you get to touch things. You get to look in these sacred books. They have a few of them under glass. They have one, for example, under glass, which was an original copy of the 1926 Science of Mind textbook that has all the handwritten notes Ernest Holmes wrote in it as he was editing the next edition. So those they don't let you get your hands on. But it's amazing. We actually, believe it or not, Michael and I went back into some just wandering all through this place. They're still setting it up. We found the board of directors minutes from 2002, the page with our names on it from the meeting, that monthly meeting, where we were listed as up for ordination in 2002. That was kind of fun. We got a picture of that.
We go to the next slide, please. You're wondering, when were we going to come around to this piece of paper?
There we go, yes.
It's like a massive org chart, right, or something. But this is, I don't know if any of you, have any of you ever seen anything like this before? A few of you might have. We're going to talk about New Thought today, because unity, so many of us here have been raised in unity. Mary Beth and I were raised in religious science and unity. And unity is a silo of what we would refer to as New Thought. If you want to refer to it as a denomination, not exactly, but New Thought is we're going to talk about it, a way of thinking about life. And it goes way back. We often call it New Thought ancient wisdom, because these are not new ideas, new concepts we're going to be talking about. I know Reverend Kitty's talked about that too. We're going back to the teachings of Jesus. We're going back to teachings of Lao Tzu, way before Jesus, Plato, Aristotle. There is a common vein going on for thousands of years, but New Thought, as we refer to it, the modern day version, started back in the 1800s, and that's what we're going to talk to you about. Who were some of the primary people and who were the teachers of the teachers, even bringing us up to being here in unity today.
So if you look on your chart on the left, there's this funny name, Phineas Parkhurst Quimby. Love that name, Phineas Parkhurst Quimby. Phineas Parkhurst Quimby was really the forerunner of the New Thought. And when we say New Thought, we're not just talking about it's new. We're talking about the whole genesis of the movement is about having a new thought, because when we can have a new thought, we get to have a whole different experience. You know, there's that old saying about you think the same thought over and over again and expect a different result is basically the definition of insanity. So in order to have a new result, you have to have a new thought. So New Thought was all about how to think about what you think about. Quimby was was the forerunner of not only what they call mesmerism, which led to hypnosis, if you will, but it was through Quimby and one of his students that he discovered non-local healing. And we have a book called Mingling Minds. That in other words, our minds are not separate from each other, that there is the ability for there to be non-local inducement of ideas to create a level of healing. And if you notice right below there, under Phineas Parkhurst Quimby, if you follow down there.
Let me give a date stamp on this too,
okay,
just so you know. Quimby was born in 1802. He lived until 1866. So he did his works sometime in the very early part of the 1800s. That's how far back we're going.
And one of the highlighted names there, if you follow that line to the left, Mary Baker Eddy. That's ring a bell, Christian Science, right? Mary Baker Eddy. And right next to her, Emma Curtis Hopkins, mother of all teachers of New Thought. And if you look right down below that, there's Charles and Myrtle Fillmore. So we're going to give you a couple of quotes from these folks. Okay, let me get my reader so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, a couple of quotes from Quimby, who lived 1802 to 1866. He said, "Form the habit of seeing only good in everything and everybody so that you cannot see anything else. Look through the outer appearance to the truth within." Another quote from him is, "Rightly directed, the subconscious mind, subconscious self, is ever active for us, for a willing servant, like a better half, wiser than we, ever ready to add its counsels to ours."
Quote from Thomas Troward. Now, Troward you'll find over on the right-hand side, right underneath Ralph Waldo Emerson. And it's been said that Ernest Holmes took much of his teaching, it kind of clicked the buttons for him when he read Troward. Judge Thomas Troward was over in England at the time. He was originally a judge in India. So he'd studied many of the Upanishads and many of the ancient teachings in India. Then he came over to England. Around that time, Ralph Waldo Emerson was doing his work. So I have a quote from him, and his stuff is, bear with me because these are mostly off of lectures, and his sentences were paragraphs. So I have a short one for you. And I love the first word. He says, hitherto, had to include that. I could have updated it, but hitherto, we have taken forms and conditions as the starting point of our thought and inferred that they are the causes of mental states. Now we have learned that the true order of the creative process is exactly the reverse, and that thought and feeling are the causes, and effects out in front of us are the conditions. When we have learned this lesson, we have grasped the foundation principle on which a specification of the generic law of the creative process becomes a practical possibility. And I like that quote because the final word's practical possibility, right? What good is it studying this? It's interesting, but unless we can use it and put it to work for us, which is everything we teach in Unity, then we always say that knowledge without application is hallucination.
Yeah, so about Troward, I was going to make a comment about that too. Oh, Troward was the first president of International New Thought Alliance. So we had some time spending some time with him. Talking about Emma Curtis Hopkins. Many of you have heard of her. She taught 50,000 students the concepts that she had embodied. And this was after she spun off from Christian Science. Essentially, what we understand is Mary Baker Eddy was healed by Phineas Parker's Quimby. She started Christian Science. Emma Curtis Hopkins came over to Mary Baker Eddy, got so excited with her healing that she was the editor for the Christian Science Monitor for quite a while. And there was just this little thing where Mary Baker Eddy thought, it's my way. It's my way. And at that point, Emma Curtis Hopkins, being a new thoughter, began to say, well, hey, a mind that's infinite, that can think in infinite ways, seems like only one book is kind of short. So she spun off and began
right
into
about the end of the 19th century, right?
Yep, right about then. So Emma Curtis Hopkins, one of her easy quotes is, if you can redden your face with a thought, you can straighten your crooked bones with a thought. She said, it is one of the first teachings of metaphysics that all environments, circumstances, conditions, all the people who come near us and everywhere else existed as first ideas in our own mind and now appear in plain sight to be known and read plainly.
Now, you notice we're skipping over a lot of people on here, obviously. So otherwise, this would have to turn into a class, and we're not going to do that. The other person I want to mention, though, there's a couple more. Melinda Kramer. She was very instrumental in what we now know as divine science. And she, again, came down right off Emma Curtis Hopkins' teaching, along with Nona Brooks. The two of them were instrumental in starting what was known as divine science. Those of you who studied Joel Goldsmith or ever read Joel Goldsmith, he was basically with divine science also. So again, just another flavor, another silo, if you will. A quote from Melinda Kramer, our bodily condition is a result of our way of thinking and believing. If we wish to change the condition from weakness to strength, from disease to health, from pain to ease, we must believe that the desired change is taking place. Then shall we find relief according to the intensity and sincerity of our thought. Our inward thoughts give form to our feelings, so we seem to ourselves to be the conditions we externalize.
Just a couple more. Myrtle Fillmore, who was the co-founder, along with Charles Fillmore, of our movement, Unity Movement. Remember, we're working with oneness, but with variety, and Unity is one of the varieties of the oneness of New Thought. Myrtle made the statement, I have made what seems to be a discovery. I was very sick. I had all the ills of mind and body that I could bear. Medicine and doctors ceased to give me relief, and I was in despair until I found practical Christianity. I affirmed my beliefs, and I was healed. She went on to say, sometimes we pray to a God outside of ourselves, It is the God in the midst of us that frees and heals. You need to think of God, the all-powerful healer, as already being within you in every part of your mind, your body, and your heart. And then there's Charles Fillmore, my favorite Charles Fillmore. We can even affirm it together. Repeat after me. I fairly sizzle with zeal.
I fairly sizzle with zeal
and enthusiasm. To spring forth. With a mighty faith. To do that which ought. To be done by me. Let's sizzle with zeal.
The last one we're going to leave you with this morning is from Ernest Holmes. Ernest Holmes was born in 1887, lived until 1960. The founder of religious science, originally the Institute for Religious Science, which later on split off into Religious Science International and United Religious Science in the United Churches. Today, Centers for Spiritual Living. A quote from Ernest Holmes: "We have within us a power that is greater than anything we shall ever contact in the outer, a power that can overcome every obstacle in our life, set us safe, satisfied, and at peace, healed and prosperous in a new light and in a new life."
Interesting note about Emma Curtis Hopkins, because she touched so many lives. And a lot of you in Monday Morning Metaphysics, we know one of our favorite prayers of hers is to stand in the face of any adversity and declare, this too is good. This too is God. This too is for me, and I demand to see my blessing in it. And there are some students that have a little trouble demanding at that point, but we're working on that. I wanted to mention about her that her students included Harriet Beecher Stowe, who wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin, because this is all around the time, right, pre-Civil War, and the abolitionist movement was going on at full bore. Another one was Ella Wheeler Wilcox, a poet. She influenced Bill W., the recovery programs, AA, etc. She influenced the Fillmores, and Ernest Holmes was her last student. I thought that was pretty cool.
We go to the next slide, please. You can put this up on the refrigerator if you want to study it during the week. That's why we handed it out for you. Otherwise, tuck it away somewhere.
Well, it really is pretty cool, because we should actually go back to it in a minute. Okay. When we went to the Parliament of World Religions this past year, it was here in Chicago, and the interesting thing about the Parliament of World Religions is New Thought is a very young theology in relationship to a lot of them on the planet. And when we first were represented at International Parliament of World Religions, was back in the late 1990s. I remember when our president of religious science went there to Cape Town, South Africa. And then early on, there was another one. Then there was one about 1915, and it was said, well, 2015. And it was said, the thing about New Thought, like we're in the room, but we're not at the table yet. Well, when we were there in 2023, we had one of the largest contingency of representation for New Thought of all the denominations that were there at the convention center. And we gave out a card, and I just want to share with you what it states about New Thought. It says, we are a family of denominations practicing unique expressions of our shared beliefs and principles. And it was actually once called a religion of healthy-mindedness by the philosopher William James. I'm not going to read this whole thing. The initial idea unfolded into successful application, and practitioners of New Thought began to see that the power of an uplifted consciousness could not only bring about physical healing, but also heal negative circumstances and conditions in our personal lives. By a show of hands, how many of you have had that happen? Where you've actually healed something in your life, a problem. You had a problem and it's not a problem anymore. You actually applied your principles and were able to see the results. Yeah, and I think, the more you connect it, you'll see it. The more you connect that our thoughts are things, what we think about, we bring about, and all of the principles that we teach.
We go to the next slide.
So we thought we'd talk about what are these principles that are so much a part of each of the different theologies, the different denominations in our theology. And a principle, by the way, really just means a fundamental truth or a proposition that serves as the foundation for a system of belief, okay?
So in unity, we would say there is only one presence and one power active as the universe and in my life, God the good. A generic statement within New Thought is non-duality, source, the field, only one, that there is only one.
The second one you all know is our essence is of God, and therefore we are inherently good. These are unity's words. Essentially, the principle we're working from is we are all one with Source.
In unity, we are co-creators of God, we say, creating reality through our thoughts held in mind. A generic statement within New Thought is life is done unto us as we believe. Our experience of reality arises out of this. Universal among all New Thought teachings.
Through prayer and meditation, we align our heart-mind with God. In other words, we experience life as the creative process. Interestingly enough, the creative process was Troward's name for God. And who we were the creative process as the individual. So basically what we're talking about, cause and effect, it's done unto us as we believe. And things are ours by right of consciousness. So the work is always on consciousness.
And finally, through thoughts, words, and actions, we live the truth we know. And again, universal to all New Thought, our living actions arise out of our thoughts and beliefs. Can we go to the next slide, please?
So what does that mean for us, and why is this relevant to anybody sitting in this room today? Next week, next Sunday, will mark exactly 100 days till our national election. So a lot of the work that's being done now in New Thought, in every one of the denominations of the theology of New Thought, is a movement toward what we're calling spiritual activism. What is mine to do? And for each of us, we can look at that, because if you now look at your map, you now have your map of our lineage. You can see where we started. Everybody look at the bottom of that page that you have. Everybody look at the bottom. We're not going to pull the slide up again, but look at the bottom. Right down at the bottom of the page, you notice there's space there. You know what that space is? Us. Because we now are the movement of New Thought. New Thought is not just a movement, it is a movement within ourselves. So the next steps here, we have these paragon people who did all these wonderful things. We can go to Unity Village and wander from archive to archive, and it's going to be like 4 or 5 different rooms, not just rooms, but not chapters, but the sections of this building that go on room after room. And you can look at all the beautiful writings and the artifacts that these people who came before have created and passed down and taught and taught. But that's where we are right now. And Michael and I thought, well, we're going to take a stab at trying to condense a lot of this down to a very short period of time to try to help us understand that New Thought is not just something we talk about, it's a way we live. We live out of principle. We know how to have a higher thought. We know that we, at least at some theoretical level, embrace this idea that God and I are one. And if that's the truth about me and it's the truth about you, that namaste that we say, that's within us now. There's something that wants to be born within each and every one of us to stay the high watch for the next 100 days. We don't try in religious science, in unity, in divine science, in the different versions. We don't try to make things right. We see them right. We see them through the eyes of God. Why? Because our eyes are the eyes of God. We don't just say this is New Thought. We say it's New Thought, ancient wisdom. This goes back into antiquity. Hermes the Great once said, and you've heard me say it, God is an infinite sphere whose circumference is nowhere and whose center is everywhere. Each and every one of us is the center of source. And the most amazing thing in this lifetime that we all get to be privy to and are privileged to be a part of is that we are now literally at the intersection of science and spirituality. Quantum physics is proving everything that avatars down through time have seen, that there is nothing impossible in the mind of God, that everything is a wave and it becomes a particle and begins to manifest when it's focused on. So it's for us to be doing the choosing, the initiating, and the directing of how we desire to have our lives move forward. I'll give you a real quick example, and then we're going to do a prayer. My grandson, 9-year-old grandson, spends the night my granddaughter and my grandson, they spend the night every Friday night. And yesterday morning, Roland lumbers into the room and wakes me up. Grandma, wake up, Grandma. And he sits down next to me and we get in these chats, like early morning chats. And he's sitting there next to me and he says, I know why I get so excited when I wake up in the morning. And I said, why? And he goes, because I always have something to look forward to. And I went, well, isn't that a formula for life out of the mouths of babes, right? So how many of us wake up in the morning and the first thing we think of is, oh, good, I got lots to look forward to. But isn't that a choice? Even looking toward these 100 days, what kind of amazing things are going to unfold for all of us? And next week, we're back here again, and next week we're going to talk about some of the ways that we can do some elevating consciousness, not just for ourselves, but for humanity, because there is demonstrated now in science and in spirituality that when the tide rises for one, all boats rise. And we're boat rockers, don't you think? I like to think we're rocking the boats and they're rocking well. So that was part of the main reason that we wanted to come and talk to you about all of this stuff that we experienced. It was exciting, all the people we heard, but mainly to bring back to you the heart of New Thought. Why it's beating in your chest, why it's special. And the more you know about your lineage, the more excited you can become about all the things that it took for the ancestors. Think of all the shoulders we're standing on today and realize now we got big shoulders and it's our shoulders that others will stand on from here. Our children, our friends, our family, people we've never met yet. Who knows? Who knows where Emma Curtis Hopkins next is sitting in this room, or Charles Fillmore? Who knows whose lives we will touch next? So we really appreciate you letting us share just a tip of the iceberg of what experience we had. In fact, I will mention it inspired. I talked to Kim Charles, talking her ear off last week, and she actually wrote you a song, I think. So we're going to hear that today, are we not? Okay, great. So anyway, I think that's us. Is that anything more you have to say?
Says it all. Let's join together in some prayer.
Yeah, and you're going to do a treatment.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We're going to do a meditation. I just invite you to just get comfortable right where you are. You may want to take a nice deep breath, nice deep healing breath, and slowly release it. Let's just do that one more time. Just knowing right now that there is only one presence, one power, one intelligence in this universe. And this intelligence, by whatever name you may choose to call it, is everywhere present. There is not a spot where God is not. Where Spirit that created this entire universe through and as me is expressing itself. Because I am never separate from it. Never have been, never will be. And the same is true of each one of you and everyone else on this planet. So I accept this for myself as I invite you to accept this I am for yourself. That I am this living presence, this living power, this living intelligence expressing itself uniquely, individually, and perfectly as me. So knowing this right now, I know that I stand on the shoulder of these giants. These people we have talked about today are part of that same mind that I am part of. The same intelligence they accessed, I access. The same knowingness they got, I got. I know that I am here seeking to know this higher truth greater and to use it more and more in my life. And that as I use it in my life, as I use these principles, these magnificent principles of unity and these magnificent principles that are the same within all the silos of new thought, as I pay attention to how I'm using them in my life and choose to use them greater, choose to understand and use them, I know that I have the power to choose and initiate. I can choose how I desired my life to look. I can choose how I desire to experience this universe, this planet, this country, how I choose to experience my own life. And as I do that and plant these seeds within spirit, I know that God always says yes. God always says yes to that which I desire. And knowing this, and knowing that I am basically imbued with this intelligence, this power as an expression of the One, I give great thanks for it, knowing that through God all things are possible, all things already exist, and all things, as I choose them, are showing up for good in my life, right here and right now. I say, thank you, God. Thank you, Spirit. I release this word now, knowing that it is truly done, complete, pressed down and overflowing in every way through my life and the life of those around me. I let go, I let God. We join together in saying, and so it is.